Hey everyone, I want to make a quick video to show you how to use Lucidchart, which is the website we're going to use for making our initial flowchart and potentially the entire project for our classification of matter field guide. So you type in Lucidchart and you can sign up for Lucidchart with your Google account, which is how exactly I would do it. So go ahead and select the Google option. That way you can use your BVSD account. I've already done that with mine, so bam, going to sign in. And once we are in, we're going to create a blank document. What's really truly exceptional about Lucidchart is how easy it is to make flowcharts and how easy it is to edit those flowcharts. I'm just going to go ahead and leave the sizing options the way they are for now. I'm going to pick the round bubble here, and I'm going to begin my process. So here, the beginning part of our project is if you encounter a solid piece of matter, right? And you have to go down various different pathways for classifying this matter, determining if it's a compound, an element, a mixture. If it is an ionic if it is a compound, is it ionic or covalent? Using the different properties that we have at this point studied, and any additional research that you may have to do, right, will also add to the depth of this chart and how good it is. So it's both some of the labs that we've done, some of the readings that we've done, some of the discussions we've had, in addition to research you're still yet to do. How are we going to create a really truly exceptional flow chart that you could use, that a professional could use to classify matter out in the field, right? So you encounter a solid piece of matter. One of the first questions you're probably going to ask is it uniform in appearance? Meaning, does it look the same throughout? Now, I'm just going to go ahead and draw an arrow, meaning you encounter the piece of matter and then you ask this question, right? Is it uniform in appearance? Now, you could ask several questions. You could have several of these bubbles side by side, perhaps. You could create a linear structure. This is up to you, and these are the decisions you're going to have to make. What's truly fantastic about Lucidchart is you don't have to make that decision and have it set in stone like you would, for example, with a Google drawing. Because once you create that arrow, do you see how easy it is to drag and drop and move and add? It's really fantastic. So, is it uniform in appearance? Does it look the same throughout? So I'm going to offer two options. Well, yes or no, right? If it's uniform in shape, in appearance, it looks the same throughout, that's going to inform another pathway, right? Another path that I'm going to go down. So what I do is I'm going to go ahead, and once I drag and I hold over that red dot, I'm going to connect it to this option here. Now, I'm going to go back and I'm going to find that same spot again. And when I do that, I'm going to do this. Okay? So now I have two options, two pathways. And what's also really cool is when I double tap right here, I can add text. Yes or no. See how simple that is? Now, as you go about this project, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create a flowchart without any images. That's the starting point for every single person in the class. Once you've created a complete flowchart and you've received both peer feedback and feedback from your teacher, you're going to then decide if I want to continue to use Lucidchart or if I want to go down a different way altogether. If you're particularly techie, you may want to make an app, perhaps build a website in which you lead the user through these different decisions. So rather than necessarily shown on one big flowchart, you could actually have several pages in which there are yes or no decisions, for example, if it's an app on your phone. That said, let's say you choose to use this Lucidchart as your final, project. Now, one of the requirements is adding images to our flowchart, to our field guide. I've already gone and found an image of calcium carbonate, right? An example of an ionic compound. Now, I found this image, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to make it pretty small here on my chart because I really don't want this image, I mean, this initial chart, right, can only be so detailed. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to include images. So for example, if I were all the way down at the ionic compounds stage, right, I found an image that I like, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag the text box over, okay? And I'm going to write calcium carbonate. Maybe I'll put in parentheses, click to learn more. Now I think I'm going to want to group these two things together, the text box as well as the image. So I'm going to select both of them, and then I'm going to group them. Then that way, those images and that text are together. Once I have this selected, okay, I'm now going to choose the insert. Well, looks like, maybe I need to ungroup these for a second. So arrange, ungroup. Let me go back to this image. I'm going to go back to the image. That's what it is. I can't do it with the text on there yet. So I'm going to go back to the image, and I'm going to select action. Now what I'm going to do is I am going to link to a new page on this document. Link to page. Let's go ahead and create a new page called calcium carbonate. I'm going to create that page, and then I'm going to say done. When I do that, notice that down here a new tab appears. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to reinsert that image of calcium carbonate. This time I can make the image much bigger, right? I can add a whole bunch of text. Now what I'm going to want, right, calcium carbonate. Perhaps CaCl or CaCO3. Now, I can also write a lot more text describing that this is an example of an ionic compound. Notice though, I'm going to select that 3, and I want that to be subscripted. So I'm going to go ahead and choose that option. Okay. And here I can list additional information about it, as well as insert, the web address for where this image source is. You don't want to just take images off the internet because that is stealing, right? One final thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add a button, so to speak. In that button, I'm going to write back. There we go. You can make it colored. You can do what you want. Maybe you can draw an arrow in there too. But what I'm going to do is, now that I have that, I'm going to insert an action, and I'm going to include, right, a link back to my original page, right, which right now is just called page 1. So now that I have these two things together, what I think I can try and do now is I can select both and I can group them. And I think that'll still leave that image. Yep, that's fine. So when I am done, if this were to be my final presentation, right? If I decided to use Lucidchart, I select present mode, right? And then when I do click on this object, it takes me to the page, a nice big image, and I can select back, right? I press escape, and then I go back to my editing mode. Another thing you can do is share this project. You can also make your teacher a collaborator. We'll talk about when that's appropriate. If you have any other questions about Lucidchart, just go ahead, ask your teacher, and also just play around with it a little bit. We're open to different suggestions. This is your project to make of it what you will, as long as you're following through on the requisite requirements. This really is yours. This is your project to make it your own. All right.